Today I'm actually doing my foundation routine, which I thought I would never do because I really didn't want to go on camera on YouTube with no foundation on, because I was that really awkward teenager that had braces and acne and like fluffy hair, and while the acne went away, I've been left with really pink skin, which is partly due to my cool undertone to my skin, but mostly due to the fact that I had like crazy pimples and acne when I was a teenager, and now my skin is just like pink and blotchy and red and horrible. So I figured it might actually be a good idea to do a video on how I do my foundation and the routine that I do every day to actually hide all that blotchiness. When people see me with no makeup, they think I'm sick, so that's how bad it is. Usually the foundation is the first thing that I do, and I do my eyes, brows and lips after that, but I really didn't want to go on camera with no foundation and no eyes and no brows and no lips, because it would be such a horrible sight. You would have to switch out of this video, and then it kind of defeated the purpose of me doing this video. I don't have any pimples today, which is kind of weird because I always have pimples, except today when I could have actually done with a pimple to show you how I cover it. But anyway, I tried to cover a freckle instead, so yeah, I'll get to that. Prepare your eyes for a side that you may not want to see, and I do hope that you find this tutorial helpful, and yeah, that's all. Okay, bye! So I'm taking a little bit of my moisturizer. You warm it up in your fingers so that it is emulsified, and then you just gently press it into your skin. And I've only got the tiniest amount on my fingers because I don't want to apply a lot. I just want to have a fine amount of moisturizer all over my face, especially in areas where I tend to get dry and then greasy. Because I have dehydrated skin, which I will talk about in another video, basically I need to keep it well moisturized so that I don't end up oily. Personally, I don't really use concealer because I do wear quite a heavy foundation, and I find that that covers everything that actually needs covering in my skin. But for the sake of this video, I will show you areas that I would conceal. But first what you want to do is apply your foundation so that you can actually see where your foundation is going to cover and what will need concealing afterwards. Because if you put your concealer on first and then you put your foundation on, whilst you're putting your foundation on, you're also moving that concealer underneath, and you're going to get kind of a patchy result, and it's just not going to be ideal. So do your foundation first. Whatever you see through that foundation that needs concealing, then go back in and conceal that. So the foundation that I like to use is Revlon Color Stay for combination oily skin, because I have really oily, awkward skin. I put that on the back of my hands like that, so I'm using my clean hand as a palette. So your hand is also going to warm up the foundation so that it goes on smoother, and it just makes it a lot easier, especially if your foundation has a pump, because that way you can actually measure out how much you're going to be using. So I take about that much and I then dot it all over my face like this. I get a clean finger, sorry, I get a clean finger, but I actually use that one, and I take a little bit on my foundation and I dot that everywhere on my face like this. I actually work in one section of the face first and blend that in, and then I move to the other side of my face. So I might just do here first. Okay, so then I use my flat top, I guess it's a kabuki brush, but I just call it a buffing brush. It's got synthetic hairs, and I am actually going to do a video on my favourite brushes, so I'll tell you more about this brush in that video. But right now I just want to get this blended in because I look like an absolute dingbat. So basically, taking the brush, I do small circular movements, just blending that foundation in. And I press it really gently on my skin, because if you press too hard, basically you're going to cause hyperexfoliation, which is where you get those tiny little bits of like patchiness or flaky skin, so you don't want to do that. I then take my flat top brush and I just press it into my skin. So that's called stippling, and that is the gentlest way to apply your foundation. You can also apply your foundation with your fingers by patting it into the skin, stippling it into the skin like that. You can also do it with a sponge. So basically, you can apply your foundation any way that you find the easiest and what works best for you. But remember to pat it into your skin. And one thing I will say, please never ever rub your foundation into your skin. So I know so many girls, so many women, and boys for that matter, get their foundation on their hands and they rub it into their skin like this, and they put it everywhere on their face like that, and it just is the most horrendous way of doing your foundation, because you're kind of removing it as you apply it, which obviously defeats the purpose of putting foundation on to begin with. So always pat your foundation into your skin. You can rub it a little bit in circular motions like I did if you're using a soft haired buffing brush like this, but then to get the smooth result at the end, I do pat over the top of that. So this cheek looks a lot better than this cheek. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this cheek now. Okay, so both my cheeks are looking a lot clearer than they did before. And remember to put your foundation up to your hairline. A lot of people are guilty of putting their foundation here and kind of stopping there so as not to get it in their hair, and I am also guilty of that, but do make the effort to get it as close to your hairline as you can without actually getting your foundation in your hair, because otherwise you'll have that little like patchy red bit of real skin there. Okay, so because I've already done my eyes, my brows and my lips, I've pretty much gone as far as I can using this brush because as you can see it is quite large. So I'm actually going to swap over to a different brush, and I swapped over to this brush here, which is just a dome shaped, it's got no name, it's just a cheapo off eBay, but I love it, it's brilliant. It's just a dome shaped, basically the same as what I was using before but dome shaped. And because it's got a pointier end, I can actually get into those awkward small spots a lot easier. So I'm going all around my nose with this, underneath my eyes, in between my brows, and as you can see I'm just pressing that brush into my skin because it's going to give you the smoothest result. If you need to, take a little bit more foundation onto the back of your hand like so, and then dot that again anywhere where you need a bit of extra coverage. Around my lips and my brows obviously is much more intricate, so I'm going to use a different brush again to kind of outline them and put my foundation there. But usually, to be honest, I do my foundation first and then I do my lips and my eyes, but I didn't want to come on camera completely naked faced. Now I'm just using a small flat topped concealer brush and I'm just going to press these little intricate areas into the skin, like around my eyes, contours of the nose, a little bit above my brows. I put way too much foundation there, so I hope that doesn't run down into my brows because I actually like my brows today. And this is also the brush that I'll use if I end up putting concealer on. Now for outlining my brows and my lips, I'm going to use this flat angled concealer brush. It's very thin and very easy to maneuver, so I can get right in there. If you do your foundation before your brows and eyes, obviously you won't have to worry about this business, but if you're having a smoky eye or something like what I've done and you do your foundation last, then it's a good idea to go in with this tiny brush just so you can get all those intricate angles right. I'm taking a little bit more foundation and I'm just outlining my lips. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that as my base just from foundation. So now I'm going to blend a little bit down underneath my jawline. That's something that so many people forget to do. Basically their foundation ends right here at the jawline. Basically everyone's neck is going to be a different color to their face. That's just natural because your head causes a shadow and the sun doesn't get there. So yeah, the neck is always going to be more pale, and I'm not suggesting that you apply foundation to your neck because that would be such a waste of foundation and an extra 10 minutes that people don't have in the morning, but you do want to blend a little bit just underneath the jawline here. So I'm taking whatever foundation is left on my hand, I'm going to apply that again with my finger, just basically wiping that directly underneath my jawline, and then with my big brush I am just going to blend that in. And you don't have to be as careful under the chin because really who is going to be looking under there? This is not a flattering angle for me. And then you can blend it down the neck because you just want to blend that foundation away to nothing so that you don't have any harsh lines there. So while I'm happy with the coverage that my foundation gives me, and once I put my powder on, that also has coverage in it, so those two in conjunction with each other makes a pretty good coverage in my opinion for my face. But for the purpose of this video, I will show you where and how I would then apply concealer. So I use this Ben Nye, cream color concealer palette. It has pretty much every single concealer color a makeup artist needs. So the concealer I will be using is this one here. It is a green toned concealer, so the green counteracts any redness in the complexion, and that will basically tone that down and also conceal at the same time. So I scrape a little bit of that out with my spatula. And with concealer, a little goes a long way. So you don't want to go over the top with concealer because it tends to be a lot thicker in consistency, and it can tend to look quite cakey. So a little goes a long way with concealer, and start off with a very small amount because you can always put more on if you need to. So I've got that concealer on my hand. I'm just going to press it in with my finger and warm it up a little bit, and also make the consistency less dense. Then the only place I'm actually going to apply this is around my nose area and right here on my cheeks, because I do tend to get quite a lot of redness there. So I'm just gently dotting that onto my face around my nose. This also tends to be where a lot of other people get pink or red as well if you have a cool undertone to your skin. So yeah, that's it dotted onto my face. I look like an absolute queer now, but that's alright because I'm just going to pat that in with my concealer brush. And remember, never ever wipe this in because you will move every single thing that you put on underneath that, which basically is just foundation, but yeah, remember, press it into your skin. And blend it up and away to nothing. So my concealer is all blended in, but it's actually caused a bit of a highlight on my face, which is not something I wanted to do, but it'll go away when I put my powder on top. If you have any blemishes in your skin, like a little pimple or freckle or something like that that you want to hide, take a little bit of your concealer, and I would probably still stick with a green based concealer because it will counteract the redness in that blemish. Take a little bit on your finger, and I wouldn't use a brush to blend that in, I would just dab it on with my finger. So I have a freckle here, so I'll cover that for you. And yeah, basically this is what I would do if I had a pimple there. So I would take the concealer on my finger and press it onto the blemish like this, very gently. And then with a clean finger, I would blend that out to nothing. If you have dark under eye circles, I will actually be doing a separate video on that because it's kind of an issue unto itself. But if you do have dark under eye circles now, you would basically just go and press a little bit of your concealer underneath your eyes as well. I don't actually have any dark circles now because my foundation has covered what I have. But yeah, I will be doing a video on that. I'll have it linked down below when I've actually done it, which hopefully will be soon. Now, my biggest rule in makeup, aside from pretty much everything else, is that any cream or liquid that you apply to your skin, you must set in place with a fine dusting of powder. So even if your foundation lies and it says it's like a cream to powder foundation, or it sets itself, it doesn't. It's lying to you. You need to set it in place. A lot of people are terrified of powder because they're used to those powders that look really cakey or really powdery, really matte, and it basically looks like they've dunked their face in a bowl of flour. But powders are not really like that anymore, and if you invest in a good one, it will serve you so well, especially if it has a little bit of coverage in it, because then you're basically getting coverage on top of coverage and it gives you that really flawless base. So a couple of good powders. If you have very dry skin, this powder from Chanel is brilliant. It's actually a hydrating powder, and it doesn't give you a flat matte finish. It actually gives you a nice iridescent finish, and that is the Vitalumiere Compact Douceur. So I would highly recommend that for anybody that has dry skin and doesn't want to wear powder. Set your foundation in place with a fine dusting of that. It will be so good for you. Also, this one, it doesn't settle in any fine lines or pores. It's got spherical pigments, so it actually blurs the appearance of them and gives that really cool airbrush look. However, I can't wear this one because I am so oily and I want that really flat matte finish. So I use this one. This is the best one I've ever found for my skin personally. It is Australis Fresh and Flawless Pressed Powder. Blah blah blah. Anyway, it's amazing. It goes on so nicely. It's very fine, so it doesn't give you that cakey look, but it basically sets my foundation in place and it mattifies everything, and it's got coverage in it. So another thing to remember is that powders usually come with a sponge. Don't apply it with a sponge unless you're doing touch-ups during the day. Once you've first done your foundation, you want to set it in place with a fine dusting of powder on a big fluffy brush like this. So any big fluffy brush should do the trick. But another important point to remember is do not rub this into your skin by any means, because then you're going to remove everything that you've got underneath and it's going to go patchy. So again, you're pressing it into the skin. So basically, if you've learnt one thing out of this entire tutorial, it is press everything into the skin. Do not rub anything into the skin unless it's your moisturizer or cleanser. Any makeup you want to press into the skin. So I am putting this absolutely everywhere. And it makes such a difference. I love this powder to death. And it's so cheap. It was like $12, something like that. I especially concentrate my powder onto my T-zone and my nose because that is where I get the most shiny. So now my base is finished. So I've moisturized my skin, I put my foundation everywhere, I have put concealer anywhere that actually needs it, and then I have set everything in place with a fine dusting of powder, and then you're good to go. So basically then you can do your contouring, you can do your highlighting, you can do your eye makeup if you haven't already done it, your lips, your eyebrows, etc, etc. But this way of doing your foundation is going to ensure that it looks really smooth, it hides a multitude of sins, and it will pretty much stay put for a very long time. Not exactly all day, because you will require a touch-up maybe around lunchtime or about 4 to 5 hours after doing this. P.S. just a little side note, this is my face now about, 4 or 5 hours after I filmed my foundation tutorial, and I don't know if you can actually see on camera, but my skin is really shiny and oily now, so I thought I would show you how I do my touch-ups during the day, because that is something important that you should know in order to not look cakey and to actually get the most longevity out of your foundation. So what I do is I take a sheet of tissue, and ideally you would use a tissue and not a piece of toilet paper, but everyone in my household has just gotten over the flu, and so we have not a single tissue in sight, so sadly I have to use toilet paper, but that's okay. What you want to do is basically get the toilet paper or tissue and split it into halves. So if it's too thick, like you can get a lot of thick tissues and a lot of thick toilet papers. If it's too thick, it's not going to soak anything up, so you basically want to have 2 thin sheets of it, and with the thinnest one, you're going to basically press it against your T-zone or wherever you're shiny, like this. Make sure you don't rub, because you will rub your foundation off. So, anywhere you're shiny, which for me is basically everywhere. And you should see on your paper after you've like blotted your face that you can actually see the oil has come off onto the tissue paper. For this you can also use like oil blotting papers. That would be ideal, but I go through them so fast and they're just not worth my time to keep on purchasing, so this is the method that I use. And because people usually go to the bathroom to do their makeup touch-ups, you're always going to find some kind of tissue paper in a bathroom, so it just works out, it's convenient. So anyway, my excess oil is on this tissue, which is gross, so I'm going to throw that away, obviously. So now what I'm going to do is touch up my little oily bits and pink bits, that sounds really bad, with a bit of powder. So I'm using my favourite powder ever for oily skin, which is the Australis Fresh and Flawless Pressed Powder. And because it's got a bit of coverage in it, it will actually, well, it'll give me a bit more coverage, and it will cover up any bits that have turned like red or pink again, such as my nose, my cheeks, etc. So this is where you can actually use the sponge that comes with your powder. Make sure you keep that sponge clean, because basically, if you think about it, you're putting that on your face every day. It's also going to collect oil and gross germs and things like that. So wash this. Wash it the same way that you would your brushes. Personally, I wash mine with a bit of dishwashing liquid because that's actually made to get rid of grime and oil and things like that, so it will break it down. It will stain your sponge. It's not going to go completely white again, but at least it will be hygienic. So you can reuse these sponges, just keep them clean. Anyway, so you want to take a little bit of your powder onto the sponge and then press that into anywhere that you actually need it. It's handy if your powder actually comes with a little mirror so that you can look into your mirror and do your touch-up. Oh my god, I'm so shiny. Always. So that one bit of powder that I put onto my sponge pretty much did my entire T-zone, and like over here, doesn't really need anything, and on most people it won't. So that is how I do my touch-ups during the day. I would also then usually touch up my lip gloss or my lipstick, I don't know, something like that, and then get back to it. So thanks again for watching. Bye everybody! So I hope that you found that helpful. As always, if you have any questions regarding the video, just leave them down below and I'll get back to you. I do have an Instagram, which is at Stephanie Lang Makeup. I will also leave that down below so that you can check that out if you want to. I do post different makeup looks, etc. on there, and you can also talk to me on there if you want to. I hope that you guys found that helpful, and remember, if you do have really blotchy, red, kind of awkward skin like I do, there is hope and you can cover it. So thank you for watching. Bye! So anyway,